Welcome to the Bridging the Education Gap, the podcast where parents, teachers, and education leaders come together to share insights, stories, and strategies that connect learning at home and in school. Whether you're a parent navigating homework struggles, a teacher fostering classroom breakthroughs, or an education leader seeking innovative solutions, this is your space to learn, grow, and collaborate. Each week, we dive into real conversations about education, from tackling pain points to celebrating success stories, all with one goal: to bridge the gap and empower every child's learning journey. I'm your host, Jessica Shelley. Let's get started. Today, I'm honored to have a special guest who embodies what it means to be a transformative leader in education. Dr. Nick Gardner is an accomplished school administrator with a passion for student success, teacher empowerment, and community engagement. He's been instrumental in implementing innovative initiatives that not only enhance academic achievement, but also create meaningful connections between schools and families. His work in mentorship, leadership development, and advocacy for educational equity has made a lasting impact on countless students and educators alike. Dr. Gardner, welcome to the podcast. We're so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Jessica, for having me. I'm excited to share a little bit of my story.
Yes, with that, goodness. All right, back up. With that, let's get started. So what inspired you to pursue a career in education?
Well, Jessica, not only my father was a current principal and educator, my sister is actually a current teacher right now. But growing up, I actually had no desire to be a principal, even though I saw my dad do that every day. But I think honestly, what inspired me was the countless educators I've had along the way. Like I think back to my kindergarten teacher, Miss Roby, who I actually still have some of the gifts we had to make for our parents for Father's Day, Mother's Day, to Miss McDaniel, who loved theatrics and plays and would dress up, to my middle school math teacher, and then lastly, my college professor, Dr. Bland, who without him in college, I'm not sure I would have made it out. So I think having those educators along the way really kind of inspired me and showed me that the power that educators can have.
Absolutely. And then using that experience, you decided to pave the way and make an influence on others. So how did your experience as a PE teacher and assistant principal really kind of shape your leadership style?
So prior to my time here at Ross Elementary, I spent 10 years as a physical education teacher and then 1 year as an assistant principal. And I really think about this as what my strengths or what I did as a teacher are really some of the same things that I bring to the principalship of community involvement, relationships, mentorship. So it's just on a much bigger scale. So when I think back to my days as a PE teacher, I thought about the needs of the current school I was at. And one of the big needs at Quincy was just the lack of intramurals or activities for kids to do after school. And Quincy was a very small school, around 150 students. So I was able to implement an intramural program that automatically influenced 40 kids now, so a third of the school. So I think seeing the need and then identifying that, I carry that same mindset over to Eisenhower, where I spent 1 year as an assistant principal, and the biggest need there at that middle school level is mentorship. So I started a program called AIM, which is Achievement Inspired Minds. And we really looked at some of the students who had either the most write-ups, the most suspensions, attendance issues, and those are the students that we targeted for this group, because those are the students who often are not in the club. So I really think it comes down to finding a need and then using your skill set to address those.
Oh, man, I would love to tap more into this idea of mentorship that you've been able to create and foster within the school buildings that you've been leading. So what impact have you seen from pairing students with mentors?
I've actually seen not only the impact with the mentees, but the mentors themselves have seen the impact. And the first thing you see is just a consistent adult in our students' lives. That's the biggest thing they need, is just someone consistent, someone that shows up. And just at Ross, we've seen better behavior, better attendance. And then they're really working on this year, really focused on goal setting. So teaching our young men how to write SMART goals and then outlining the steps to reach those goals. So it even goes down to, the kid wants to play in the NFL. Okay, so what are the steps you need to get there? And then what if that doesn't work? What are some plans you can have in place to still support your level of football, but keep within your goals? So I've seen the impact through not only the mentees, but the mentors as well.
Amazing. And then there's that, I wouldn't say that mentor programs are a very common thing, right, in schools. So tell me a little bit about how that looks. How have you structured that? And maybe any tips that you have for other educational leaders that are looking to start something in their building.
I mean, you're right, Jessica. When I came to Ross Elementary, there was no mentoring program. In an elementary school, there's just not an abundance of men or guys working at a school. And so my second year, I noticed that our kids just really need to see other successful men in different careers. So they're not only hearing from me from the education perspective, but hearing from there's so many different jobs and so many opportunities out there for them. So we started something at Ross called Be Present. And really it came down from just being present. That's all you have to do, is just show up. commit some time to our students, and it really makes an impact. And really, it started with just having I put out an email to a call to our community, to every man that I knew, every job, and just said, hey, can you come out on Fridays and greet our students? So we had about 30 to 35. We had a pilot, different businessmen, police officer, a fireman, just come out and give our students high fives. And that alone made an impact because it showed our students that I can do that, or it gave them different opportunities. And then from there, we really targeted specific men who had time, because time's the most important thing of not only ourselves but our students as well. So I just ask if you can give 30 minutes to an hour a day to join us in this Be Present mentoring, where we pair them up with a student, and we've targeted specifically students who didn't have or a single parent, whether it was a grandmother or just a mom, because that's the need right away. And then we had a parent meeting where we actually, so that's one tip I would say, is you need to have the parent involved. So we had a parent meeting where they met the mentor. So now they have each other's numbers, and that just creates more buy-in and commitment. And then finding people who are consistent and who will be here every week or whatever you designate as that time for those students.
Amazing, amazing. And so you mentioned a little bit about how you recruit different mentors for the program. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you kind of sustain this relationship throughout the year with your mentors and mentees?
The first step is just communication, and then also giving our mentees and mentors options. So we do have different tiers, I guess you would call it, mentorship, because not everyone can give an hour a week. I know that's asking a lot, especially of successful, when they're busy. So we do have different types of mentors. So we do have some who are mentors for a class who will just come in monthly and just kind of be a presence. Then we also have the mentors who come quarterly to greet our students. And then we do have the ones who come every week. And I think to sustain mentorship is you have to show the impact they're having, or their sense of purpose. So we're always constantly, setting those goals, but also talking to our mentors about the impact they're making. So example, we've had students who have been truant or not coming to school, who are now coming to school 4 times a week, and definitely on Fridays because they want to see their mentor. And so we can kind of build in things saying, if you don't come to school, you need to make sure you come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so your mentor comes on Friday. But then more importantly, the biggest thing the mentorship has given our students is just somebody else that's an advocate for them, that sticks up for them. You'll see them often talking to our teachers about if there's a situation in class, problem solving with the teacher, and working together. So that part as a principal has been the most impactful, is seeing the relationship our teachers now are developing with the mentors and how we're all working together.
You've done an incredible job bringing your community in to support your students. So tell me a little bit more about how the parents play a role in the school community that you've created.
Without the parents, there would be no students in our school, and that's one thing our current superintendent, when I took over, as Dr. Anderson, had me go out my first summer before I took the job, is to meet as many community members, parents, and just honestly, all I did was just listen and take feedback, and ask how I could assist them or help them, or what can we do to make Ross a better school. And then one thing we started our first year is we had this goal of creating 10% of our jobs, or 10% of the current jobs at our school, for families who live in the Ross community or have kids that attend Ross. And naturally, we're slowly reaching up there. And most excitingly, we just have a teacher now who was in the Pair the Teacher program who has her daughter at Ross. So not only are they filling the classified roles of the paraprofessional, food service, maintenance, but now we actually have a teacher who has her own children at Ross. And that just takes to the buy-in and the commitment, and then believing in what we're doing and the good work we're doing each day.
How has that impact of hiring parents for school positions contributed to your school community as a whole? Like, what impact do we see on the students in that sense?
Well, the students like it. Well, to me, I think they like it. But just having, I think your parents or your relative at the school just provides more of that sense of family and culture that we're trying to build. But it also provides that education piece, because in education there's different acronyms and different words and different things like that. So we're also providing some education to our families and parents, who then can bring that back down to their students or different people they interact with. And more importantly, it provides economic resources, especially where Ross is located. It puts financial resources back into the community that it needs. So to be able to provide a job, steady employment, and to be able to work with your child, I think is pretty significant.
Amazing, amazing. Can you share a few other successful events or programs that have helped strengthen that connection between schools and families?
Yes, so our what I like to think Ross is known for is our community partnerships. And when I say community partnerships, that's a two-way street, because naturally you think from a community partnership, what can they give to you? But schools, we have a lot that we can give back to our community, whether it's volunteering at their organizations, showing up for them, and also just acknowledging their work. One thing that we started last year was something called a Night of Inspiration, where we invited, I think we had 38 community partners who had some role, whether it's mentorship, financials, just being at our school. And we brought them in for a night to say thank you. And the most impactful thing was not really what I said or the adults said, is what the kids, we invited some of our ambassadors who are kind of our student leaders to speak to on how their community partnership made their school experience better. And that alone simply just reinforced that what we're doing is on the right path. And we're also showing our students to acknowledge when someone does something to say thank you. And we don't have to necessarily do it the same way they do with money or time, but we can simply just acknowledge them that night and saying thank you, gave them a piece of artwork actually by a student who was impacted by their partnership, and just acknowledge their work and their help to make our school better each day.
Absolutely phenomenal. I love how you've engaged the parents, you've engaged the community, all really about building that kind of village of support around each individual student. So, what would you say are some of the most important lessons that you've learned as you've become a principal?
Yeah, great question. I was reflecting on this past weekend, and probably the biggest thing I've learned is listening. I think that's a skill that has helped me tremendously, is that I listen often more than I talk. And so I'm able to really listen and hear what the current needs are. And then I think the next piece is to be a collaborative leader and a transformational leader who's not afraid to take chances or be innovative and try different things, but also knowing our job as a leader is to keep the mission and vision of the school as our top priority. So sometimes we have to see the whole picture and then kind of help support our staff along the way to show them the different steps it takes to get there. And then lastly, I think just the relationship piece of having a staff who's committed to the work, because it's not easy, but those relationships and taking time to know something about your staff is impactful, because all that work leads to better results for students. And that's why we're all here.
Absolutely amazing. Some incredible key lessons there. Really about your focus on community, coming back to this one more time, real quick, but how you've engaged the school and the community and the parents. What advice would you give to other school leaders that are trying to kind of actively build this strong, supportive school community for their students?
That it really comes down to just showing up. And part of that could be sending an email or inviting them to your school to see some of the work you're doing, having them interact with your staff and students. The best community partnerships we have are when the staff know who they are when they walk in the building. So we have some community partners who, when they come in the building, our staff all knows them because they're present and they're here. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. And then the second thing would be is make sure you show up for them as well. If they're having a fundraiser or if they're having an event at their workplace, just offer. And then one thing we started doing is if they invite us to come speak at their organization on their impact, bringing students with you, speaking to that impact. So I think just showing up for each other and using each other for support, because schools can't do this alone. We've often become really the resource hub for all of our families. I can't tell you how many times I get asked for different resources and can you help me with this? And being able to reach out to our community partners really helps make us a stronger school, but more importantly, a stronger community.
Fantastic. And then, our audience for the podcast, those that are listening are other school leaders, educators, parents. If you were to kind of summarize those big key takeaways for any of those stakeholders in education around the child, let's go ahead and leave them with kind of one final note from the lessons today.
Yeah, the final note, Jessica, is what you summarized it with our parents, community partners. It's our job as your podcast is to bridge the gap. And so it takes a village, and it's going to take all of us playing different roles and working together to really make the change and keep providing the best education we can for our students and our communities.
Fantastic. Well, Dr. Gardner, this has been an incredible conversation. Your insights on leadership, mentorship, and the power of community engagement have truly been inspiring. It's clear that your work is making a lasting difference in the lives of students, educators, and families. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey with us today. And we appreciate your dedication to education and your commitment to shaping a brighter future for all learners. As you already mentioned, we're all in this together to support all of the learners across the country and globe. So to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bridging the Education Gap. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with others in your community. Join us next time as we continue to explore how educators and parents can work together to empower every child's learning journey. Thank you again so much, Dr. Gardner.
Thank you, Jessica.